Today, I'm going to show you some amazing ways to use blueprints in Satisfactory. I've seen a lot of people say that the designer is a little too small, and I do agree that some changes would be nice, but I think I found a way to use the current designer with efficiency like Fixit intended. I'm talking about making all of your blueprints modular. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, duh, we already do that, but maybe not in the best way. I've laid out some common examples of blueprints that I've seen from various people. These blueprints are functional for making production lines, but I don't think they use the designer in the best way. The key thing that I think people forget is that blueprints are so much stronger when you plan your factory. And that is the core flaw if you want to make the most of the designer. This may take extra time, but it makes building and designing so much more fast and fun. Now, let's take a look at some blueprints that really take advantage of the space you have and utilize planning. Okay, so right here I have an example of a very basic kind of like a level 1 blueprint. Now these will connect together with belts and power lines, but they're only designed for production. And these are actually the first ones that I used on my save. And if we ignore design elements in the game, these actually work really well. But let me show you the tier 2 version of these. Right here, we have a tier 2, in my opinion, or a slightly upgraded variant. So you can see we still have power lines run up top, but this time we've hidden logistics. Now you don't have to do this, but the biggest perk to this blueprint design is that it was built with a plan of some sort. Now, these aren't amazing blueprints, but I think they're one step above because they're built with a plan. You can see that we utilize all 4 foundations wide, and this specific blueprint uses a logistic floor, and that was part of the pre-planning process. Some people like open logistics. I personally prefer to hide them in a logistic floor, but you could still get the same amount of planning if you planned to have production tiles just like these. Now you'll be able to snap these anywhere that you laid out for a production tile area. This just shows you what planning can do. Okay, and now I would like to show what I think is more of a tier 3 blueprint. This isn't perfect, but it does illustrate a lot better the planning side along with designing when you're making your production areas with blueprints. So right away you can notice that there's a lot more detail in this production tile than previous blueprints that we've shown. And if I go ahead and highlight, you can see that this tile only has 1 constructor in comparison to 4 on the previous ones. And that's because we're planning to have production lines here, and we want a start and eventually an end. And both those ends are made accordingly. We're also incorporating some support from the layer that the constructor is sitting on, and then we're adding on top of a roof. Now this roof is now the new way of hiding power. You can see it's pretty hard to tell that there's a cable right about there. And making the roof allows us to snap more blueprints on top of this blueprint. So these no longer just become in a line, but you can also stack them vertically, which is a pretty big plus. At this point, we're also thinking about lighting between floor and ceiling lighting here. You're gonna have to ignore the colors here. They might have changed due to a swatch. And we're also implementing walkways or planned walkway areas. Now you don't have to do all these things in blueprints, but they do help when designing because the less blueprints you have to place down, the faster your factory will be built. Now we're going to look at this blueprint here, and these are refineries. This is the max amount you can fit in a blueprint designer 3. They're sitting on a foundation with some conveyor holes ready. And again, these are utilizing a lot of pre-planning and figuring out how we want our factories to flow and where we're going to walk, where our production needs to be, what space we need to occupy. See down here, I want to have a small walkway that goes right along here. For that, we need some lighting, and we can build that lighting into the next floor, which we've done right here. Now on this level, we can do a lot of things. We could remove these pillars here as well, as this is an experimental blueprint. But you see, if we were able to remove these pillars, we can even design a walkway that splits the foundation in half, is open-ended on this side, and then when we merge them facing each other, it would be one walkway right here. Now, because of the height of the refineries, we do struggle to have a lot of space up here for a roof, but you could 100% incorporate a roof if you really wanted to in here. I personally think I'll be doing a separate blueprint to snap on top of this, but there's a lot of options here, and especially with these shorter buildings like a constructor, assembler, you can even do it with manufacturers if you want. You want to start thinking about the verticality. What else can you build that will help you out later on? So real quick, just looking at this blueprint, if we snap them into each other, they don't work perfectly, and we have this little gap here. But if we turn on lumen here, you can see that this makes quite a difference when we incorporate the lighting inside the blueprint. Now, if you didn't do this, you'd have to go do all this by hand. Wouldn't be as fun. And we could even take this one step further by creating walkway snapping points down here, so that when we're ready, we could just place one zoot for like a half foundation or something like that. And the beautiful thing about this constructor one is that we have a really tall logistic floor. We have our production level, walkways, lighting, a bunch of stuff going on here. We have a full false ceiling for power lines and other stuff, and we still have more room to work with. Now, if we want to be able to stack these, we don't really have that much room to work with, but you can make this void area much taller, and maybe you wanted another logistic floor here, you could do that. But with the way this blueprint is designed, you just need a flat floor down here, and the bottom of the blueprint becomes the logistic floor right here, as you can see right here. And when you start testing these blueprints, you start to notice, oh, I can do even more. You could throw some walls in on the top or bottom of this blueprint. Probably the bottom though, so it doesn't conflict with any snap points. But the moment you start creating your blueprints like this is when you'll be able to build large scale factories really quickly with the blueprint snapping mode. Now I will say in Update 8, it has been made way more viable now due to the snapping, nudging, and deleting of blueprints, which I have to say are some of my favorite additions to the game ever. Real quick, if you're finding this video helpful at all, let me know in the comments and make sure to subscribe. This brings me to the most important intangible when it comes to blueprints, and that's building as much of your factory into every blueprint as you can. Now, building as much of your factory into every blueprint as you can does take time to get better at and understand, because I still find major room for improvement with every blueprint I make. I'm still finding ways to incorporate more and more into every blueprint. So remember, when thinking about building blueprints, try your best to incorporate walkways, walls, maybe logistics, lighting, and some small design elements. And I think that does it for this video. If you'd like a really in-depth look at blueprint creation, let me know. And if you want to see any of these blueprints in action, check out the live streams or the VODs that are on the live tab on the channel. I stream on both YouTube and Twitch, so you can view on your preferred platform. But until we meet again, peace.
I'm slick with words, tongue sharp, you left in thirds. You pitching verbs, I knock it out, I'm flipping birds. While smoking herbs, I'm blocking out what often hurts. I'm moving herds, it's me, my family, money, merge.